Joining us today, and I hope they'll come to the stage as we announce their name, 5 distinguished speakers. Please welcome Moderator Craig Miller, who is the General Manager of Western Municipal Water District. We have a panelist, Darcy M. Burke, Board Member of Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. Ed Manning, who is a partner at KP Public Affairs. Jason Phillips, Chief Executive Officer of Friant Water Authority, and Jennifer Pierre, General Manager of the State Water Contractor. Mr. Miller, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Fritz. It's great to follow the PFAS conversation because I don't know that we'll have any initials in anything that we're talking about, but water supply is so fundamental to this state. I love the conversations about PFAS, but does PFAS matter if you don't have any water? So this is an enormous issue. And I don't want to waste a lot of time with introductions, so I'm going to ask each of the panelists if they just do a brief introduction of themselves, and then we'll get going into the questions. So Darcy, you want to lead off?
Sure. Thanks, Craig. My name is Darcy Burke. I have the pleasure and honor of serving on Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District's Board of Directors. I also have been appointed to the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Local Government Advisory Committee, where I chair the Water Committee, PFAS Communications Committee, and Climate Adaptation Committee. And for 3 weeks now, I am the Executive Director of the Urban Water Institute.
All right.
Yay.
Yay. Jason Phillips.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having me back. Jason Phillips, CEO of the Friant Water Authority is my current role, and Friant Water Authority represents farmers in the Central Valley from about Chowchilla, 150 miles south to Bakersfield, and about 1 million acres of farmland on the east side there in the San Joaquin Valley. Before that, I was 17 years at the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and had some years before that with the Army Corps of Engineers. So a lot of water supply planning, executive management, ran the Klamath Project for a while, and so now I'm at Friant. Glad to be here.
Ed?
Hi, I'm Ed Manning with KP Public Affairs. We're a lobbying and communications firm in Sacramento. I'm here because Craig made me come because I work for Craig. I'm his lobbyist in Sacramento. But we represent state water contractors, wholesalers, retailers across the state, CVP contractors in the past. So we see water policy from pretty much every perspective. I'm an environmental lawyer by background, and after the PFAS panel, I'm going to stop lobbying and open up my water practice because it sounds very lucrative. But so I've had the pleasure of working with many people in this room and water leaders from around the state on water policy, trying to make things better with limited success.
I'm glad you showed up, Ed.
That's not
It's
true.
been pivotal for you.
What happened yesterday? We'll talk about it.
All right, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Pierre. I'm the general manager for the State Water Contractors, which is an association of 27 public water agencies. And what they share in common is they get some portion of their water from the State Water Project. The Metropolitan Water District is our largest member. Kern County Water Agency is our second largest member. We serve altogether water to 27 million people, 1 in 12 Americans, and 750,000 acres of farmland, mostly in Kern County. And I do just want to say as background, since Jason gave his, my background is in conservation biology, and this is going to be relevant because I'm going to spend most of the morning complaining about my work in the legislature, which is new to me this year.
Well, I'm really happy to have this panel for all of you today because these are some heavy hitters in water, and we don't always get them down in Orange County. So we're going to talk a lot about statewide water. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about water supply. But the name of the panel is the state prioritizing abundant water supply. And I don't really think that's the question. I look at it more like, is the state planning for enough water for scarcity? I mean, are we going to run out of water? We're a long way from abundant. I don't want to blow the answer to the question, but we've got a long way to go. And all of these people up here have been working really hard, and we're going to tell the story about how hard we're working to create more water supply. But I get a lot of questions when I'm out speaking about, well, there's plenty of water, and all we got to do is conserve, and we'll all be great, right? And climate change is okay. It's happening. We all know it's happening. If we just conserve more, we'll all be good, right? And as a water manager, that kind of drives me crazy. Of course, we should conserve and be efficient. But if you just look at what's been happening in the last few years in the state, it's pretty dramatic. And this isn't like a scientific data analysis of what's the effect of climate change. This is what is happening. So if you go back to 2017, enormously wet year, we watched the spillway crumble at Oroville on the news, everything was full. Dry year in 2018, 2019 was wet again, all the reservoirs filled back up. A dry 20, a dry 21, and at the end of the year in 2021, the State Water Project had a 0 allocation. So we went from full in 2019 to 0 in 2021. Rained a little in December, we got up to a 5% allocation. We've never seen a 5% allocation before. And so, I asked my neighbor, Matt, he's my barometer on water issues. He has nothing to do with water. He's a Berkeley graduate. I said, Matt, how much water resilience do you think the state of California should have? What should our bank account be for water? And he's like, I don't know, 25, 30 years? What do we have, Craig? And I'm like, how about 2.5? Does that worry you? And he's like, what are you guys doing? What are you water nerds doing? It's scary. It's scary. And so as that was happening and Metropolitan was getting health and safety water from the state to survive for the State Water Project dependent areas, that's 6 million people, the general managers started talking to each other. It's like, what are we going to do next year? If it doesn't rain in 2022, what was going to happen? And it didn't rain until 23. And the general managers would look at each other with this deer in headlights look and say, I don't know what we're going to do. That is scary as someone I have 1 million customers in my service area. I don't want to stand in front of my customers and say, we've run out of water. We didn't do our job. So this is significant. And out of that came a statewide effort where we said, we have to address this. We have to figure out how to improve water supply. Out of that eventually came a bill, SB 72, to try and force a planning process for the state to start developing infrastructure to capture more water and move more water across this state. So there's a lot of action that's happening. But I think the story really that I would like to hear first from our panel is, how did we get here? These are very experienced people who have been in this game for a long time. So what happened? So Jennifer, let's start with you. You're sitting at the seat for all the state water contractors. How have things been kind of changing over the last 10 years?
Well, I think going to the most recent drought is an interesting thing because I think it touches on a number of things. One is, of course, that we haven't been building infrastructure. I think everyone's aware of that. We can get into that more of what that looks like. But I do think, backing up, we had 2 incredibly wet years in 2017 and 2019. And they were so wet that in each of those years in the springtime, we actually kind of turned the export pumps off because there was nowhere left to put the water that was coming through the delta that we otherwise had a water right to. And that's really a failure of our ability to figure out how to improve storage south of the delta, whether that be under the ground or above ground or whatever. And I think there's been a lot of partnerships and whatnot since to try to alleviate that that hurdle in the system. But I just don't believe that we don't have enough water. That's just not, I look at the system and we actually have a lot of water that comes through our system. We just mismanage it. And that's not on a day-to-day I can have a lot of complaints about that too, but just over the course of the last decade, we've had 3 of the wettest years on record and we're still worried about, less than 2 years of backup supply. So that's really on us to figure out how to manage those wet years. The hydrology in the delta system is shifting, but it's not drying. And I think that's very in much contrast to the Colorado River, where we're actually seeing aridification and drying in that system. In the Delta, we're not. We're seeing it change from rain to snow, and we're seeing it come in 2 or 3 months instead of over a 5-month period. And how we respond to that is going to determine if we have scarcity or abundance coming out of the state water project. The other thing to be aware of that happened just prior to the drought is I'm sure all of you felt like it came on super fast. Like, wait, we had all this water and now we don't. And what happened is that we had a phenomenon where the snowpack actually what's called subliminated. So it didn't ever melt. It just evaporated into the air. And it was to the tune of 750,000 acre feet of water did that. And so all the models were wrong. And that's why the drought felt like it came on so fast. And so it really was a combination of not having stored the water to address that, but then also not having had some of the right tools and hydrologic relationships to be able to account for that potential to happen. And therefore, probably, I would say maybe even an over-allocation in those previous years. So then we end up in this very, very deep, all of a sudden drought. And we've got no water really stored away to deal with it south of the Delta. And that's, I think, where there's been a lot of focus. So that drought was I think, a huge wake-up call for the State Water Project in terms of how we do climate modeling. There was actually a state audit that was done, and DWR responded to that audit to improve the way it models and accounts for that. It also increased the amount of water that it keeps behind Oroville, just as kind of a backup climate resilience type water. But of course, that's water that's then not delivered to our service area. So that's a reduction in allocation. So what we need to, in my opinion, be focused on are two things. One are how we operate, and that can happen now. And that's something I work in partnership with everybody here on the panel and across the state project and the CVP. And then the second is what are the appropriate long-term investments in infrastructure? And that's another major topic and something that I'm almost entirely focused on right now in our state capitol.
Thanks, Jennifer. Jason, you were one of my new friends when we started this. As an urban water provider in Southern California, sometimes you get nervous to call other parts of the state and talk water. North-south battles, ag-urban battles. So I reached out to Jason and said, hey, what's going on up there? Here's what's happening down here. Tell me your thoughts. And Jason just gave me an enormous education on the federal project, the state project, and what ag's perspective is. So Jason, maybe share some with the audience also.
Yeah, and maybe this is because of my ag perspective, but I want to tell you what I feel about abundance versus scarcity real quick. So imagine you have a table, table of 5, a family at a dinner table. And the waiter comes by, brings a plate of food to person number 1 and sets it down. And on that plate of food is what everyone in that table would see is a perfect amount of dinner food. By anybody's, whatever imagination you'd have. Waiter says, I'll be right back. And everyone's, oh, this is great. Because we were told this is what we're going to get every day for dinner for the rest of our lives now. 5 minutes later, the waiter comes back and says, oh, I'm sorry, that's actually for the whole table. Okay, now that's the difference, in my opinion, between abundance, you actually know what you need every day to survive healthfully, versus scarcity. Now we're going to spend the rest of our lives trying to fight over that amount of food. Yeah. And so I'm going to come back to some of that analogy later, because I think most of the time, we talk about, we're talking about the wrong thing in terms of statewide water abundance, and are we headed there or where are we? So, but here's a couple things that have frustrated me with what the government has done in the past 30 years. The government started on the right track, the video is showing it, by saying, we know what the state needs today and in the future to have an abundant water supply to meet the needs. So here's the system we need to build, and they started building it. And at the time they built it, and we all know that California requires water to be imported from Colorado River, from the Delta, from Owens Valley. We are dead if we don't get those imports. So, and that's the infrastructure that was starting to be largely built. Government error number 1, didn't finish. Mm-hmm. We have studies in the 70s and 80s in the Bureau that show we will be 2 million acre feet a year short by 2020 in the Central Valley if we don't build the Peripheral Canal, Auburn Dam, and the Mid-Valley Canal. Government didn't build it. People pounded their chest about it, not building it, did nothing about the demand. So now that we're millions of acre feet short, oh, surprise. Government error number 2, spent the last 30 years reallocating water from those systems to the ocean. Great. So now we're millions plus more millions. How is that all happening? You guys are like, we still turn on the tap, right? Well, for one, we know that Craig's saying that you're dangerously close to being out of water in Southern California with the wrong set of years. But number 2, this has all been soaked up by overdraft in the Central Valley. In a dry year like you talk about, 2021, 2022, we are overdrafting 8 million acre feet a year. And that's all going to have to stop. So we have a train wreck coming. And so those are government errors. The government is the waiter that we depend on to bring the proper amount of food to the table so that we can figure out how to divvy it up. And so anyway, I've got more on that on my next question.
More to come. More to come. Ed, you've been around a long time. Don't take that the wrong way.
That was not.
I'm old.
You're old.
How about seasoned?
Seasoned.
Yeah.
Experienced. And Ed, you've talked to me so much about how bad policy in Sacramento has been happening, and you've spent your career fixing bad water bills, killing bad water bills, promoting good water bills. Can you just give the audience a little bit of perspective over your career, how things have kind of changed in Sacramento and what's led to the situation we're in?
How many hours do you have?
As long as Fritz doesn't cut us off, we're good.
I was thinking about this, and so to put it in perspective, I was practicing law in LA until 1998, environmental law, did some water stuff, moved to Sacramento to lobby full-time in 1998, and have been in the water world since. When I first went to Sacramento, there was an effort called We'll All Get Better Together, and it was the Bay Delta Accord. And that was going to herald the new approach to, putting more water in the Delta for the environment and fixing some of the supply problems. Failed miserably. Then we went to the CalFed Bay Delta program. We spent literally, I don't know, at least 10 billion, I would say, over multiple years, and we really don't have anything to show for it. We didn't fix the Delta. We spent money all over the state, and there were no metrics for accountability or success. We had, in the back of our mind, the peripheral canal, as it used to be called. We finally, really due to Governor Schwarzenegger and then, Governor Brown, sort of revived that idea, called it conveyance, Delta conveyance. And we passed the bill in 2009 that I was unfortunately, now I say unfortunately now, I thought it was going to be, it was going to,
No, thank you.
Going to be supposed to be a good thing, to create a path for conveyance, which there wasn't before that at all. And here we are, that was 2009, so we're in 2025, and conveyance is spending, they're spending tons of money on studies and a failed process at the Water Board through no fault of Jennifer's, but we're nowhere. We're trying to get somewhere. We'll talk about that in a minute, and I think we may. So, there's just been, part of the problem is water managers like Craig and all of you do too good a job managing water resources and somehow keep the supply alive, even under the most difficult of circumstances. But I think we're at an inflection point. The last couple of years, the dynamic is starting to change. It's been a little bit difficult because, candidly, Metropolitan Water District, Westlands Water District, some of the folks who were leaders on policy on water supply have been sort of taking a back seat. But fortunately, Jennifer, Craig in particular, both of them have provided tremendous leadership and re-energized the water community. We have a climate change narrative now that's very different. I mean, Jennifer highlighted from a technical perspective some of the things that are happening, but the systems were designed under different assumptions, both CVP and State Water Project. Climate change is starting to change that. There's still a lot of water in the system, but we need to make fixes, and we need more supply, and then we need to be able to get that supply through the straw. That's the delta. But climate change has given us an ability to talk about water differently, and I think the new narrative about cost concerns and candidly ratepayer impacts have mostly focused on electricity, but I think there's a real opportunity to talk about rate impacts for water ratepayers as well, and what a burden that is. So I feel like we're at an inflection point. I think Sacramento doesn't pay attention to water until there's a crisis. Water agencies, someone mentioned, are public agencies. There's no political donations, makes it very difficult. But I feel we're at an inflection point we can take advantage of, and I'm really energized that I think we now have an opportunity. I don't want to be too optimistic because that never works, but somewhat optimistic. So,
Jennifer, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, kind of hearing the history here. Over time, we've set up these like collaborative, win-win type programs, CalFed, Bay Delta Accord, Delta Reform Act, all the things Ed mentioned. And in each of those scenarios, the non-water supply gets what it asks for, and the water supply gets nothing. That's what's been happening. I mean, that's it. Yep. And so we're still left, basically begging and pleading for the other side of the equation to be implemented, along with the restoration or other environmental things. I mean, the Delta Reform Act set up an entire new state agency that has just been in existence for now 15 years, and we're still, begging people to see that there's a need to modify the State Water Project. I will say, though, that we've got about 60% of the legislators in the Capitol now are new. And I was really nervous about that when the governor dropped the trailer bill in the tunnel, because I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be insurmountable. But in fact, a lot of them are very curious. And so to Ed's point about an inflection point, we do have this moment where water is enough of a known issue. I think people have experienced the swing of the drought and the floods and 12 inches of rain in West LA in a day, and then, stop watering your lawns next year, and whatever, they've kind of personally experienced. And so we've had a lot of curiosity, and I think that is what is causing the inflection point, is that people know what's coming. And I think relative to housing and energy, where they've let things get to a crisis, I think they're starting to hear, maybe we don't want to operate that way anymore. And so I just want to also give a shout out to Metropolitan and all of its member agencies who have been in Sacramento telling your story, not just about State Water Project, but about how you conserve, how you invest in local supplies, and how the State Water Project fits and supports within that. And I think we have a much more educated leadership now, more than I've ever seen. And I think we've got a nice runway, no matter what happens in the next 8 days on this particular bill, because of the work you guys have all done up there. And we need to keep that going. They need to hear from you. You're not donating to their campaigns, but knocking on there and letting them know these are your customers, these are your voters. And by the way, you still have 3 Orange County representatives that are not supportive of the bill. So you might want to give them a call pretty soon. Valencia, Burke, and Blakespeare could all use a call from their constituents that this is an important bill for them to support. But I just think, it's time for us to get the other side of the equation going. So anyway, thanks for letting me bust in.
Yeah. All right, Darcy, don't just sit here like a wallflower. So Darcy, you've had a long career in water and in communications, but put on your board member hat. You, as an Elsinore board member, you're speaking for the customers that put you in office. You're speaking for other electives. Give me your perspective on what's been changing, what's been lacking from the elected leadership perspective.
So in the last, I'm going to say 15 to 20 years, water boards, we look different. It used to be you were on a water board, you were an engineer, or you were in water somehow, and you stayed on that water board forever. I think they earned the title Water Buffalo or Water Lily, Director Dick. And then it became that people realized that water boards were a jump-off platform for a higher office. So people ran on a platform, lower rates, we're gonna lower your rates, we're gonna fix all these things, and then people get on a water board and realize they don't even understand the language. So they get quiet. And they just shut up because they don't know what you're talking about. And they don't want to look dumb, and they don't want to appear to their constituents that they don't know what they're doing because they made all these promises in their campaign to lower water rates when they realize that's just not going to happen. And then they hear, oh, we have to conserve because we don't have enough water. So we as an industry lied. Save water and you'll save money. No, that didn't happen. Save water and you're going to save money. If you had used more water, you would save that money, which is not a value proposition whatsoever. So now we have distrust. You have people you elected that said they were going to lower your rates. They don't, and you don't ever hear from them again. So you have lost complete trust with your public, except that the tap comes on. Oh, but all these NGO groups now tell you how unsafe your water is. They even have an app for that. EWG has an app to tell you how unsafe your water is. So if we don't start communicating in a way that our customers understand, even as electeds, and I think the part is that when a new board member gets on a board and understands that what they don't know, they get quiet. And silence is acceptance. And in this case, it's unacceptable to be silent because the price of silence has cost us dearly. When Jennifer talks about all the work that's done, how many in here are elected to their office? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you have a lobbyist. Keep your hand up if you have a government affairs staff. Okay, now, keep your hand up if you're the one that goes to the legislator and visits them and not your staff and not your lobbyist. Yeah, right? Or
We got to fix that.
We got to fix that. Absolutely have to fix that. How many of you know the topics? How many can go have a PFAS conversation without their staff member? Besides you, Pierre. Right? Very few. When we were asked to go talk about the trailer bills and go advocate, yeah, we're going to send staff. We're going to send staff. You did a great job, Craig. Do a great job, Jennifer. We can't send staff. And that's the problem. We're not engaged at the board level. We want to go to DC, but we go with staff. In the old days, that's not how it worked. Because people that knew water were sitting on the boards making water policy decisions. Now you have people sitting on boards that want to make change, but they don't understand the complexity of water, and so they're at a disadvantage.
Thank you. Jason.
Yeah.
Are you going to do a counterpoint?
Yeah, no.
Good, go. I love moderating when all you have to say is Jason.
I just want to offer up a perspective here, and in a way, it's pretty discouraging. But let me be optimistic for one.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jason, optimistic.
The last I looked, what's the urban use in a percentage of total water use in California? Like 10%?
yes.
About 40% ag, 50% environment, most of that
Yep.
wasted. Anyway,
Exactly.
but so let me just, you can rest assured that your 10% will be safe and secure as long as we retire enough farmland.
Yep.
So, and what really discourages me is I never get the sense that we are actually having a statewide water abundance discussion.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. Because right now, if we asked, if the electeds went and said, well, okay, here's the solution. The things that are being talked about mostly on statewide are we need the Delta Tunnel, we need Sites Reservoir, and we need the voluntary agreements to be implemented. That's like saying to that family of 5 at the table that has that one plate of food there, the waiter comes back to, oh, don't worry, we're going to go buy a field and plant some crop, and in 20 years, we'll be able to add one more bread roll to your plate. When you look at it from the Central Valley's perspective. So the narrative tells me that we are not having a statewide water abundance discussion. The governor's report, the governor and the state do not really ever plan anymore like they used to for how to meet the state's water needs. The last time a report was put out, the governor said, and inflated because of climate change, but 9 million acre feet per year was the deficit per year in the state when you look at 2040. That just gets ignored. And so we spend all of our time with, because yes, it would be good to have people constructing Sites Reservoir, constructing the tunnels so that in 30 years from now, we'll have a more resilient water supply that's 9 million acre feet a year short of what the need will be at that time. So what are we going to do? And I know what's going to happen. I've been seeing it and preaching it for like 10 years now.
Yes, you have.
We are going to just see massive decline, and we are not going to see, we are seeing valley fever rates go up in the valley because of how much dust there is. We are seeing more solar farms. That ain't gonna feed you, by the way.
No.
And so that's what is discouraging to me, is that I don't believe we are having an honest discussion about system-wide, statewide water abundance and the need. And that's my interest in SB 72, which should be the top of the priority, over the tunnels, over sites. It should be, how are we going to change the narrative? How are we going, let's get it, so we're talking about what the overall shortfall is and what we're going to do about it. And if it's retire 2 to 3 million acres, 30% or 40% of California's agriculture, then let's make that policy call and move on. And you all will have a very, very resilient, abundant water supply.
So that's not true, Jason, on the State Water Project. I think people should know that in 22, when the health and safety water was delivered to Southern California, that was on the backs of ag. So our ag, we deliver just almost as much acreage as in Friant at 750,000 acres, and Kern County's not happy about it. They basically gave up their allocation, not willingly, but without too much noise, so that people could keep the taps on in Southern California. So the idea that your 10% is safe is untrue. At least on the State Water Project, you could fallow all the land in Kern County and take all of the water into municipal, and you would still potentially have some deficit. So it is actually more razor thin on the State Water Project than I think it appeared to be under those conditions, because that was kind of scraping the bottom of it.
Yeah, we're talking about slightly different things. Yes. You're talking about within the State Water Project.
Yeah, but that's their connection here, and these urban, and they should know that their primary state, import source as it relates to ag is State Water Project, and ag was cut.
So what does the
farther
state
than
do
urban.
if we reached in 2023 and fallowing all of Kern County didn't work, and now you got Southern California
There would have been more
with
restriction.
no water?
There would have been more restriction.
And then when people's tell me when we go to really, really bad scenarios.
Well, we'd be buying from some of the more senior water right holders if for sale, and they were experiencing similar droughts. So
Exactly.
it was statewide. I agree with you on the statewide planning need. I think part of the problem, and I think many have heard me say this, is the affordability issue. And I think it's important too for this audience to understand ag is on an annual basis. We all out here planning generational. We're good with a 20-year outlook, right? We're used to that. We're looking at, what is population growth going to look like? How do we match our water supply to that? That works real well for urban planning, but for ag, it's year to year. And that's a very different story as it relates to drought, revenue development, ability to pay, all of those things. And so how do you marry those two kind of different needs and kind of economic realities around urban and ag and create statewide systems? And we did that before by having the state and federal governments really lead, loan, and build, and then allow for repayment in ways that made sense and were affordable. And now what we have is people scrambling to figure out which projects to invest in that make sense for them individually. And I think that is the problem, and that is what is handicapping the state from actually doing the planning is we've got this beneficiary pays principle, and frankly, and Jason, you can back me up on this, ag can't afford to pay for uber expensive water supply projects. So we're either gonna have a set of ag projects and a set of urban projects, or we're gonna get, or less ag, but it's definitely not gonna be as coordinated if we don't step up and make this more affordable for ag as it has been in the past, which I think is to everyone's detriment.
I think there's an opportunity here. You have to put this in political perspective. You guys immediately get into the operations of the projects, et cetera, which, if you had this in front of legislators, they'd be glazed over. They wouldn't understand it. Look, Jason made, I think, a critical point, which is for most of my career in Sacramento, I represented ag and urban. And half the time, my job was to keep everybody try to be together and focused on the broader picture with very mixed success. This is the first time in the last couple of years of my career that ag and urban are together, focused on big picture water supply and the needs. Because the truth is, the water supply picture is critical for both ag and urban, and in the past, the pointing fingers at each other and trying to say you're not using water efficiently. Imperial, we're taking away your water. Central Valley, you should fallow. Even within the water community, in the urban areas, pointing fingers at each other. I mean, that is a disaster for us. I can tell you that the environmental community, the NGOs, look at the water. I went back and looked at the water deliveries for CVP ag contractors. They were the early warning sign for urban because they started getting 5% allocations. We, state water project contractors, I represent one, we started getting 5% allocations. We're all in this horrible position. But we now have a coalition, SB 72. We have I could cite you dozens of statutes in California where we have numerical targets, housing, homelessness, healthcare. I could go on and on.
And we fail at all of them, but go ahead.
Yeah, we do not have a water supply target in California in statute. AB 32, SB 100, we have all sorts of greenhouse gas targets. How can you plan for water supply, adequate water supply, if you don't have a target? And then you have a process at the State Water Board to do this thing called the water plan, which none of you have ever looked at because it's irrelevant. I mean, we have an opportunity to get legislation through to create a goal in statute, to create a future goal, to sort of harness the water community's energy and focus on making sure we get a good plan. The other thing we failed at is the water bonds. I mean, I should say, it's one of the more optimistic things. Every few years, we've successfully done water bonds.
But there's no water in the water bond.
That was a terrible bond.
No, hang on. Successfully meaning we've been able to politically convince voters to vote for multi-billion-dollar bonds. What we've failed at as a water community is making sure water was the priority in the bond.
Yep.
And, shame on us.
100%.
And I've preached this for a while because if all of you go cannibalize yourself and argue for your little project without keeping some sort of coherent narrative and strategy for the broader water supply needs, you're going to get eaten alive by NGOs who are going to carve up that bond and make sure 90% of the money is going to other things.
Oh, Prop 4?
All of the bonds. I could go through every bond and look at the allocations in terms of where the money's gone. And we have very little to show. We don't have enough to show for it, for an alleged clean drinking water bond. So, but there's an opportunity. I mean, the fact that you're here and we're all here, I think gives me a little optimism. And, we are at an inflection point. We have an opportunity politically. But to your point earlier, I mean, I can tell you, legislators, they like me to a point. They get tired of hearing from me about water.
They like me more.
They need to hear from you. I mean, really, if you're an elected official go visit them in the district when they're not distracted, and come to Sacramento, because I'll bring you around, and I'll get your lobbyist to bring you around, and if you don't have one, call us, because not to hire us, we'll do it. We need your help, and you can make a difference, and I'm seeing it right now on Delta Convey.
Yeah, Ed, I'll modify one of your statements. You said we're going to get carved up. We've been getting carved up for decades, and the success of that strategy of carving us up, we're living scarcity. And the scarcity is that I'm gonna outcompete you for water, I'm gonna outcompete Jason for water, and then I'm gonna argue with Jennifer about who gets a bigger share out of Delta Conveyance. That's the position we've been forced into
We put ourselves there.
over the last couple decades. And it's because we've allowed it to happen.
100%.
And so from a policy standpoint, you're policymakers, you're letting it happen. You are not arguing for an abundance perspective. SB 72 is water for all uses. I love that Jason's here. He and I have talked so much about this because as a Southern California Water Coalition, the answer out of us when we're in Sacramento should never be, oh, well, just take some more water from ag so that we can have it in Southern California. I don't know about you, but food's pretty important to our country and our state and my family. And so we have the ability to have enough water for all uses. So much water is poured to the ocean in the last 3 years that could have been captured. We could have given it to Jennifer and let her move it to all of her contractors. But we're not doing that as policymakers. And so, part of this discussion is really highlighting that we've put ourselves in this position because we're not active. The other side that's forced scarcity upon us, hyperactive, crazy, committed, active, and funded. And we have to push that back. And so SB 72 and some of these, and I want to turn it back to Jennifer a little bit because Jennifer has been a woman on fire on Delta Conveyance. And she talked about how the amount of education and the knowledge on Delta Conveyance is at an all-time high. And I would argue because she's a warrior. But Jennifer, tell us, I'm opening the runway for you. Tell us more about how we can support that effort.
Well, first of all, I would say to everyone's point, you guys being in Sacramento is so impactful. People don't know where their water comes from. It's not the tap, right? And they don't know where their food comes from. It's not the grocery store. And the energy is also not the light switch. But that's kind of the easy way of thinking about it. And it's been so fascinating to watch all of the Southern California, Bay Area legislators really learn, no, this is my water too. And really start to take ownership of it. Now, have we run out of time? Maybe. We've got 8 days left in the legislature, and it's a complete nightmare over there. Nothing's moving. You've got the Senate basically holding everything up. So we have the majority of both houses on the Assembly side and the Senate side in support of the Delta Conveyance Trailer Bill, which, by the way, does not approve the project. That's your guys' job later. All it does is remove certain procedural hurdles that are costing us money, that have actually been granted to Caltrans and High Speed Rail and the Intuit Dome and the Kings Arena and a number of other projects where the legislature has, actually one fun argument recently with someone from the Senate was we don't ever, get involved in anything where there's an appellate court decision pending, which is true on DCP. I said, really? Because you just excused yourself on your own Capitol Annex building 6 months ago, and 12 months before that, you did it for the city of Berkeley on student housing. So,
And we've passed statutes that overturn appellate court decisions
So-
only when we want to. Though.
Right.
That would be the distinction.
right, so we're a little bit stuck on the Senate side. I really do encourage you to call your representatives. They do need to hear this is important. The opposition is very loud. Yesterday we got a letter, I just have to share because I'm very amused by it. We got an opposition letter, and it was the usual suspects. And by the way, we also did a Venn diagram, which really just looks like a circle of the people that oppose the tunnel. They also oppose sites. They also oppose temperance. They also oppose CEQA reform. They also oppose housing reform. So it's the same group of people opposing. I'm sure if I put on like the Huntington Beach desal plan, it would also still be a circle. So, or whatever else we're working on. But anyway, we got a new opposition added to the letter, and it was cats and canines. So I'm trying to figure out why.
Abundant water will float all the cats and dogs to Southern California, and that's what they're afraid of.
I'm not sure. But anyway, it's Southern California is 20 million plus people. You are the majority of the state, and I think your legislators need to understand the importance of this issue for them, and they are hearing it. I feel really good about the work we've done, and it hasn't been just me. It's been hundreds of people in the Capitol on the regular, talking to people and educating. And what can't be taken away is the education that's been done. And because we have so many new legislators, they're going to be there for a while, most likely. So I think we're in a really good position. I mean, whether the bill appears in print on Tuesday at midnight or not, I don't know. Every moment that goes by, I feel very manic because, like, sometimes it's good and bad, and who knows. But what can't be taken away is how much more everybody knows where their water comes from, and that is because of everybody being there. And we've got to figure out a way to stay there and keep that in their mindset, because there'll be other things. There's going to be subsidence costs. This is billions of dollars Jason and I and the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority have been working on to get federal and state dollars to make sure that your customers aren't burdened with billions and billions of dollars of repair costs, which will need to be done if we want to keep the water on. We've got operational issues where we've seen bills in the past come through that are trying to legislate operations of the State Water Project and the CVP. So there's good need for you to stay engaged. The tunnel bill, yeah, it's hot right now, but it's not the only thing. And I think the lack of presence in the Capitol has only been a disservice to our entire industry. And I agree that demonstrating unity has been really important. I want to appreciate Friant and other ag who are not currently planning to participate in tunnel, who have made calls, who have expressed the importance of the bill. Because honestly, what the bill represents is our ability to get anything done. So, I mean, really, we have water agencies like Metropolitan, for example, saying, we're supporting the bill. It's not because we support the project necessarily. We need to get to a point where we can make a decision. We need to get past all this nonsense, right? Like our final EIR was done in 2023. We haven't even been to court yet. We're saying, can the judge please hear the EIR already? Let's get through this. But there's other agencies in the state project service area. They're like, we don't have any other alternatives. We recycle all our water. We've got a tribal settlement on our local stream. Our groundwater is adjudicated, and we've got 400 new hookups coming into our district a month. We need to have an ability to grow. And then we've got people like Jason and Friant who've said, yeah, we're not necessarily part of that, although I hope you will be, because I think we're going to bring down the costs once this bill passes. But
Hope is not a strategy.
What's
by the
that?
way. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
Well, I got more up my sleeve, but I'm not going to share it publicly. So, but my point is that for Jason to make the calls, I think was really, really powerful, because I think when California speaks as one voice in the state and also based at the federal level, that's when we're going to make progress. If we're going to go ask for 50 different things, no one's going to know what to do. They throw their hands, it's so complicated, we can't deal with it, we don't know what to do, we don't know who to trust, we don't know who to talk to. Having us all talking from the same script has been an incredibly moving and powerful way to move in the state. And I think pick any water topic, right? Like tunnels, I'm glad everybody got fired up, that's great. But there's other things. We've got SB 72, which we've been talking about, but that is a water plan. It passed both houses yesterday. So I think.
Now okay, so pivot.
All right.
We need your help getting the governor to sign it now. He vetoed it a year ago. Yep. And we need water planning. This water effort is up across multiple administrations. So, we need a goal that goes past this governor to the next governor and the next. And, water planning is not done for a year. And we need to get him to sign it. So we'll be calling on all of you to help. So anyway.
You'll hear from him.
Got my advertisement.
Yeah, we're starting to run a little short on time. Darcy, hold for a second. Jason, quickly, you've been very purposeful about spending time in Southern California talking about water. Share a little bit more on why.
Well, I'll tell you why, because my observation, I think, is the farmer seems to have a very difficult time reaching out and asking for help. So what I'm observing in the Central Valley is people giving up. They can fight, they can fight, they can fight, but I am fully convinced now for a few years, Southern California will determine how much land gets retired in the Central Valley. I hate to put that on you, but in thousands and thousands of farmers right now dealing with SGMA, they're literally living out that one plate of food, 5 to 10 people have to fight for it. And they don't even, like, the legislature is so gone in terms of just like understanding Central Valley and the project and care about farming. And so my ask would be that, yes, we'll help you push for the tunnel, we'll help you push for sites. It's discouraging because I know that those do not fit squarely as top priorities. If we had a blueprint for how to balance the water needs with the supply in the state, those things might be part of it, but it would be a long term, and most of the farming will be gone by then. Yep. So my ask would be that Jennifer, speaking politically for the state water contractors, like, we need strong advocates to keep growing the coalition of people who will demand that the governor sign SB 72, but that's only step one. Step two is put a damn plan together, a blueprint that shows how you're going to fill that gap. I mean, we're dependent on the state system to do that, and if we force them to say, okay, yeah, fine, we want 2 million acres to go, or not. But that would be my ask, to continue to support these large, expensive, long-range infrastructure projects that will be very important for sustainability of the scarcity that we have today.
But we can operate better right now. I mean, we're working on that now. I mean, we can do that too. That's where you're also gonna start to see a lot of discussion, and it's gonna get political, right? It's gonna be Trump, Newsom nonsense, and that's just not the case.
If Newsom vetoes SB 72, like, I'm done.
The other value of SB 72 long-term, which is part of the reason we constructed the strategy, is we're all going to be engaged.
That's right.
On shaping that plan. But we talked about the failure of the water bonds. If that plan is done right, it should be where we're prioritizing, where we're investing in water supply resources.
Good idea.
And not cutting out infrastructure like the project or the environmental mitigation that we need to do that should be funded. So, I mean, that's the long-term goal.
Yeah, the group that put together the bill included a team from across the state, and that was a very pivotal point. So the bill, some of you may not be familiar with the bill, it sets a water supply development target at the year 2040 of 9 million acre feet of additional water supply needs to be planned for by the Department of Water Resources and the California Water Plan. Point two is an advisory committee has to be formed of water managers and water experts that are going to be at the table with DWR to form the plan. Very, very important. We, water managers who serve 40 million people in ag for this state, the 4th largest economy, want to be at the table planning our water supply future.
Not on the menu?
We've been on the menu.
And Darcy, we need you on there.
All right, Darcy, we're really running out of time. How are you getting elected officials in the game, supporting?
Calling them out individually and asking them to come with me because they're afraid. They're afraid to speak up because they don't necessarily know all the details. It's comfortable to sit on the dais and be able to just do what you're going to do. Oh, by the way, that means you have to read your damn packets. Let's start right there. And you have to ask questions, and you have to be available. I go to Metropolitan often, and I make comments. Out of 300 plus retail agencies, I'm the only elected that goes to make comments. Policy starts locally. Where the hell are the rest of you? Sitting home thinking somebody else is going to take care of it. That has to end. The tunnels are a great thing to start, but it's a start. Do your homework. Figure it out. Raise your hand. You have got to get engaged, and more so than just during your campaign to get reelected. Stop keeping your job, start doing your job.
All right. 15-second rapid fire. Jennifer, what's a win in California water?
Call Valencia, Umberg, and Blakespeare and let them know this is important to your customers.
Ed, 15 seconds.
Call the governor, write the governor, let's get SB 72 signed. And the other thing is, stay focused. Like the water community, we've got this great opportunity. Like, engage now and stay engaged. We take our foot off the pedal every time we get a slight win. Water doesn't work that way. We need you engaged for the long haul.
Jason?
Make sure the governor signs SB 72 and read the San Joaquin Valley Water Blueprints memo on what the presidential memorandum or executive order on water can accomplish, and make sure you have Jennifer continue to provide strong support in implementing that.
Darcy?
Change your mind. Abundance is California's way of life.
All right, moderator privilege, final comment. We talk about the cost of these projects, and people say Delta Conveyance, we can't afford it. Sigma, we can't afford it. The same UC team that helped us determine that we're 9 million acre feet short of water supply, we then asked, what's the cost of inaction? Mm-hmm. The cost of not developing that water supply by 2050 is up to $14 billion per year of negative economic impacts to the state of California, the loss of 67,000 jobs per year, and something like 3 million acres of ag land fallowed. It's our responsibility not to let that happen. Yep. And we have to be willing to advocate for the investment in the fourth largest economy's water supply, or we're in big trouble. And it's scary that we have to say we're in big trouble. Who are the adults in the room? It's got to be us. So I think, are we out of time?
We're zero.
We hit zero.
We hit zero.
We made it. Thank the panel, please.